Welcome, welcome, welcome. What is up, everyone? Happy New Year, Happy New Year, Happy New Year. Maybe that'll be the last time I say Happy New Year this year. I don't know, there's got to be a cutoff at some point where you just can't say Happy New Year anymore. It's the 18th of January. I don't know what that date is, but anyway, Happy New Year to all of you. First office hours of 2023. I'm happy to be here. I had a nice break here. Got to play a little golf, get some downtime, spend some time with the family, yada, yada, yada. Here we are, rocking and rolling in 2023, getting off to a great start here. Today, we're going to be talking about finding your new why. That is the primary topic today. I've talked about goals a lot over the years. I've written about goals a lot over the years. I think there's been at least 2 office hours on this topic, maybe even 3. And today, I'm going to be talking about something that I typically don't talk about outside of my one-on-one coaching. And it's an important topic. So we're going to get to that today. Let's see who's joining us here. George, welcome. Happy New Year to you too. Jamie, good afternoon. Our good friend Wildcat Apollo, Happy New Year, Merry Christmas. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Rob, reading your book right now. It's really good. Happy to hear that. Enjoy and make sure you do the work. There's a link on my website. Oops, I have this here. This is the blog that we're going to be talking about today. But Rob, make sure you go to my website here and under worksheets. Worksheets will go along with the book. I've heard some people say, "Hey, it was great to know at the very end of the book that you've got these worksheets. Would have been nice to know earlier." So here you are. I'm letting you know earlier. Martin, welcome. Good to see you today. Lillian, hello. Robert, Nico's from Germany. Excellent. We're getting some people all over the world here. Greetings, Bill. How are you? CM, Christine. Good group today. Nice to see you all. So as always, I'm going to be getting to your questions. I've got some questions that have come in advance, and we're going to be talking about goal setting and, again, kind of finding your why. Dyer, Happy New Year to you. Jared, been missing these due to work, but I'm in today. Carlos, good to see you, buddy. So yeah, finding your new why is going to be what we're going to be talking about today. But before we get there, let's just throw a little flash sale, because why not? I can do whatever I want. Flash sale 2023. I'll post the link in the chat here for you. Basically, you just get the book, Mental Game of Trading, Mental Game of Poker, 35% off, and then you get the Mental Game of Poker too for free. Easy sale. Unfortunately, for those of you in Europe, it's not going to work out. It's got to be in the US, Canada, or the UK. I think Australia will work too. Anyway. Stuart Hogue. If you have the Stuart Hogue from poker, I know that name well. Happy New Year to you. Coach Nash, first time in office hours. Really like your book. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Or ma'am, I shouldn't assume it's a sir. So yeah, we're gonna get to finding your new why. Main topic from today, as I kind of alluded to briefly. Right, this is the blog that I posted, and look, the reason that this is so important, right? And I say your new why. Let's talk about why your why is even important, right? And so we just think about this kind of very basic question, right? Why do you do what you do? Poker player, you're a trader, you're a golfer, you're in esports, doesn't matter. Whatever you take very seriously, why do you do it? It may not be a question that you've asked yourself recently, but it's an important one. And it's important for a number of reasons. Most notably, it is what's going to help to sustain your motivation and energy through the ups and downs that you're going to go through this year. I mean, any big goal that you set, any big accomplishments that you want to achieve, they're not going to come just by taking steady steps, one after the other. I mean, if you do, you're very lucky, or you're really, really, we'll say fearful, perfectionistic, right? You're not willing to kind of stretch yourself, a bit more than I would suggest is ideal in terms of getting there a bit faster. So bottom line is, right, you're going to go through these ups and downs, and you're going to be tested. And when you're tested, you're going to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Now, it may not be a conscious question, but deep down, if you start to lack energy, you start to lack motivation, you start to lack focus and diligence, your discipline starts to break apart, right? It's the why that you lean on to push yourself and sustain, because it is the thing that you want. Now, for some of you who may be new to trading, new to poker, right? New to professional golf or high level golf, right? Maybe the why is already very clear because it's something you've set more recently. But if you've been in these games a little bit longer, right? There's an evolution that goes on in terms of what it is that you want, right? And why you trade, why you play poker, evolves over time, right? Sometimes it increases in complexity. I think the most common example is that, you'll get into it because you want to make money, right? You want to make this a career. And then once you do that, it can be difficult to sustain the same kind of intensity or in the hunger you need to put in the hours to study and to work and to backtest and to research and to learn and to read books and to get advice. And all of that takes a lot of energy. And so where's it going to come from? Right? It comes from the why. Now, beyond money, why else would you want to be doing these things, right? It could be the competitiveness, could be the challenge, could be the interest, the creativity, the intrigue, the newness, the freshness. I think for me with golf, me with my coaching, right? I love the intellectual challenge, right? I love the competitiveness that's associated with golf. Coaching, not as competitive, but I do feel like there's a competitiveness to kind of getting the most out of my one-on-one client sessions and having like great results. So if that's competitive or just aspirational, name your word. But the bottom line is, there's a variety of reasons for why we want this thing, right? Independence and autonomy are big ones, right? But what happens once you get those things, right? Well, then maybe it's sustaining that. And maybe sustaining that is not as interesting or as exciting as maybe the challenge to grow and to see how good you could become at this. Or frankly, your why could be because you've got a family to support and you've got bills to pay, and now you are still driven by the money, but the way in which that money interacts with trading, with poker, etc., right, might be a little bit different. So the bottom line is, it is a worthwhile question to ask. Why do you do what you do? And I want you to spend some time actually working on this, right? Think about your why. If you don't have it right clearly articulated, it could be kind of formed in like a mission statement kind of thing where it's one or two sentences. It could be a whole paragraph. It could be a bulleted list. But the bottom line is that you're going to make sure that you've internalized that, because if it's something that is not strong in your mind, very much like many other aspects of my system, right? Most notably would be injecting logic, right? So injecting logic is the verbiage, right? The logic that you're using to inject into those key moments when FOMO and anger and loss of confidence or overconfidence might start to compromise your decision making, right? Injecting logic needs to be injected into those moments. But if it is not strong in your mind, it very well may not work. Now, your why can be used in the exact same way. In the Mental Game of Poker 2, I talked about this, like basically just injecting goals. You're injecting the why, right? And you're injecting the why in those moments when you might start to get a little bit bored, when you might start to get a little bit, lazy and procrastinate. Your focus starts to wane. You're just not bringing the same kind of intensity to your preparation, to things outside of trading, outside of poker, right? All the stuff that that is necessary for you to be at your best. You can inject your why into those moments to create a boost of energy, boost of motivation. Now, a lot of times people use these sort of external inspirational boosts, music, movie quotes, things like that kind of get you fired up. And I'm not saying that those are bad, but I am saying that they're not as potent as something that is really authentically real for you and what drives you, right? And your goals are the containment, right, for what it is that you're doing day to day, right? Your goals define where your focus goes, right? Your goals define what it means to be disciplined. And the why is that extra bit of energy, right, to kind of push you through that and keep you contained. So this is not a complicated concept, as you can see, but it is a really important one as you're sort of setting the trajectory for what you're going to accomplish this year and frankly, any year. And I think a lot of times when I work with clients on this topic, right, they have kind of not recognized that there's been this evolution, there's been this progression, and as a result, they just don't have the same kind of energy that they had before. And look, the bottom line is, when you're new in something, there often is that kind of honeymoon period, right? There's just this pure excitement and love for what you're doing. And as you get deeper in, it becomes a little bit more like a marriage, right? The romance has kind of changed and converted into a deeper love and passion. And that can seem different on the surface, right? You don't have that same kind of high that new romance did, but there's now a deep penetrating love for what you do, right? And so that is what you're trying to connect with. That is what this exercise is all about, right? So ask yourself this question, maybe over the next several weeks, work on it, take some notes, and then crystallize it into something that you can very easily learn and then inject into those key moments when you truly do get a little bit disconnected from it, right? And reconnect yourself. And it's kind of like turn the power back on, and off we go. All right. Let's see if there's any questions, anything I just talked about here. All right. How often should I ask myself why? Because if I do it too frequently, twice a year, could I be that I'm too detailed and lose a bit of the whole picture? If I do it too seldom, never, I'm outdated. Yeah, I mean, you don't want to be asking yourself why every week or every month. I mean, if your whys are changing that frequently, then you're just in like a research mode. You actually don't know the full reasons for why it is that you're doing what you're doing. And so, yeah, I think this is something you are asking, either on a yearly basis, after you've, as you're setting goals for the year. You could ask yourself it maybe a few weeks or a month after you've had some big outsized results. So client of mine last year, it was last year, had a banner year. Actually, okay, no, 2 years ago. Had a banner year in 2020, like a lot of traders did. 2021 kind of went through these cycles where it just wasn't really performing as well, but he and I hadn't talked, right? And it wasn't until almost like 9 months after he had begun struggling that we realized that this was the problem. And it was because he had had such a successful year that he was struggling to kind of understand the full scope of why it was that he was continuing to trade and wanting to trade at a high level. So yeah, just to answer your question here, too frequently. I mean, too frequently, twice a year is not too frequent. I mean, that would be maybe the max that I would suggest, frankly. You don't have to do it every year, but you certainly want to look at it kind of in concert with your goals, to just revisit them. And then also whenever you have periods where your motivation, your focus, your energy is kind of lacking. From Romania, amazing. Trader, poker player here. Finally get to catch you live. Been watching every video. Fantastic. Well, happy to have you here. And yeah, Romania, man, places I'd love to visit. All right. Do you need a bigger why than just money? No, you don't. But if there are other whys besides money, you need to define those. And that's where you're trying to really understand the full scope of why it is that you're doing this. And it could be just money. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, right? In my experience, there tends to be kind of two people who are motivated by just money. One, it's because that's what they love. They love money and they want it and they want more of it, and then that's it. There are others who are motivated for just money because they see the utility of it and they want to, kind of build a career and a sustainable life. But in that scenario, there tends to be a kind of less love for trading or poker. It tends to be more job-like. The first one, right, there's love and passion, right? Because they love the money, and then there is something about trading or poker that really kind of jives with them. So yeah, the bottom line is does not need to be more than just money. But if it is, that's the key, right? So what we're really trying to do is make sure that you're aware of all of the little boxes that these things check off for you. And if any of the ones that I've mentioned before are part of it, then that needs to be accounted for. Otherwise, you're not really kind of lined up, right, with all of the reasons for why you are why you're doing this. The motivation should come within, not only due to outcomes. Yes and no. I mean, there's a lot of real world outcomes that matter, right? I need to work to help provide for this house that I live in, and my daughter who I'm trying to raise and provide opportunities for, and the things that I want to do for myself, right? Now, the internal motivations tend to be viewed as being more pure, but external things are real too. Like we live in a world. This is not a vacuum. So I think it is absolutely okay for there to be one or the other or both. For me, it's both. For a lot of my clients, it's both. But for a lot of them, it is one or the other. All right. Question. I've given up coffee and take lion's mane to try to prime myself. I'm assuming lion's mane is a supplement. I have not heard of that one. Prime myself, but I still, when it's slow, I get bored and fatigued and my decision-making suffered. Are there any supplements you take? No, I actually, no, I don't. But that doesn't mean that you can't. But what I would suggest though, right, is that you can look at motivation and energy as like a muscle, right? Like you're conditioning your mind, much like you would condition your body to have more endurance. And so one way that you can try is to inject your why into those moments when, you start to see that trend line of boredom and fatigue starting to kick up, and you provide more energy yourself. You supplement in a way yourself what's going on there. So I'm not saying it's going to be like an instantaneous answer, right? You're going to find this, but if you keep doing that again and again and again, right, especially kind of catching it early, right? If you're really bored and really checked out and really tired, right, it's much like injecting logic when anger and fear is really big. It's not going to work as well because the emotions are too big. In this case, your energy has dropped too low that trying to regain it is going to take something a bit more dramatic. But if you catch it early and you inject your why, inject your goals, reconnect yourself to what it is, why it matters what you're doing, it can create more energy and you can build endurance that way. So I would suggest thinking of it like that. All right. If your why is money, should you also have more specific goals for what that money is for? Possibly. I think there's a lot of ways to do this, right? And I think I kind of reacting to this word should, right? There's a lot of ways to make this work. And I think you have to ask yourself, do you have the right motivation and focus and energy and discipline day to day? And if you don't, right, then yes, this certainly could be one way that helps to get you more focus and energy and discipline, and really kind of breaking that out. Now there is a worksheet that I've outlined on. There's a copy here. No, let me give me a second. I'll pull this up and we'll look at this. Just to give you a construct for what it would look like. Okay, so this worksheet you can download from my website, right, jaredtendler.com/worksheets. And you can see, right, here we go, result goals. Now, result goals can also include things that are typically viewed as process goals, like I want to improve my tilt control, or I want to reduce my emotionally based decisions, things like that. It doesn't have to just be money. But you can see the whys are here. And then we get into the process goals, right? And the process goals are basically what you are going to do to achieve these top line results. Then you come up with some tactics in here around how you're actually going to achieve those goals, right? This gets much more into the kind of day-to-day tactics, tasks that you're going to do in order to achieve these process goals. And then lastly, you're going to look at the problems you're likely face, because who doesn't want to be ahead of problems that might actually derail you? So yeah, this worksheet can certainly help if you want to expand your goals beyond just money. All right, I'm going to come back to your goal, back to your questions, and I'm going to answer the questions that were sent in advance. And we've got 3 of them. The first one is a 3-parter. In Waitskin's Art of Learning, he suggests activities unrelated to the target, like eating a specific meal or going on a walk, to replicate the feeling and consistently reach the A game. However, I believe there exists some randomness in reaching A game. Also, my warm-up includes only precautions related to the performance targets with the purpose of minimizing my C game to at least perform my B game. Would love to hear your opinion on both approaches, Maddie. Okay, so the basic question here is like, how do you get into your A game? How do you get into the zone more often? And in my experience, your assumption that the A game is random is very common, right? I think most people believe that they just sort of randomly get into the zone or randomly are performing at their best. But the A game and the C game are equally as predictable. The question is, do you have the understanding of why it is predictable, how it's predictable? What are the factors at play? And I would suggest for you right now, the answer is no. And so, yeah, Waitskin is right? There are kind of secondary factors that will play into getting into the zone, getting into your A game. But I don't believe that they have to be regimented, the same way every single day. I think it's a more complicated answer to learn kind of the factors that are at play for you to get into the zone or get into your A game, and then kind of mix that up. I'm not saying differently every single day, but to have variety in terms of how you can get there, especially because as poker players, as traders, right, you're kind of like a performance job that is different than most athletes experience, where to get into the zone like once a week or get into this A game once a week is a lot easier and can be more regimented. When you're trying to do it day to day, I think you need to have variety, because there's just variety in your life, and your life is interfacing with your performance. So yeah, I think it's important to understand the factors that are important for you to get into the zone, get into your A game. And yeah, I think right now for you, having your preparation be more geared towards defense, right? More geared towards avoiding C game and trying to get at least in your B game. Now you can be a bit more aspirational and trying to get more offensive. What is it going to take for you to be at your best more often? Kind of asking that question. And then when it does happen, you can retroactively go back and say, okay, I slept well. I ate, let's say, a not very heavy meal, or not one during the day. I got a workout in, had nice conversations with some friends the night before, and it's like, all right, well, are all of those factors causal? Are they determining whether you did or did not get into into your A game? And I'm, when you have a sample size of 1, right, that's not causal yet, right? You need to build up more of a pattern here, right? And so, yeah, take notes and study it. It's again, no different than anything else that occurs on the downside in your C game. All right, next question. I'm having an extremely hard time following my routines and consistency, morning prep, evening review, weekend monthly reviews, being on time for trading sessions, missing trades for stupid reasons. Is it due to my inability to channel my attention and focus? Sign that I don't want it bad enough. I have a strong edge. I still manage to mess it up most of the time, Mike. So, Mike, it's actually possible that what we're talking about today is very relevant for you, that you have a strong edge. You probably have been successful, and now you're kind of in this phase where the things that may have motivated you before no longer, as motivating, and money is probably that thing. It's a very, very common scenario, right? I've had clients who have, won big poker tournaments, had amazing years trading, and then all of a sudden now the thing that was really driving them has been kind of checked off, right? They have financial independence. They have enough financial stability that's not the only reason to do this. And they're struggling to come up with the reasons why. So is it due to your inability to channel your attention and focus? No, I think it's likely due to your inability to understand why it is that you even want to be doing these things. Next question. How to work on self-discipline, self-control. I'm good 70 to 80% of the times while trading, but some unexpected situations arise and I'm losing over to my emotions. Later, I realize how badly I behaved and feel like crap. I hate myself for not being able to follow my own rules. Please help and advise, Gov. All right. Now, I can say that he has not read The Mental Game of Trading or The Mental Game of Poker. And I say that not as a point of criticism, but as a point of, this is a topic I'm very, very clear about in that book, or in The Mental Game of Trading, that discipline problems that are driven by emotions are not discipline problems, right? I'm losing over to my emotions, which means you're dealing with probably some anger, maybe some fear, overconfidence, loss of confidence, right? This is an emotional problem, and your hatred of yourself is completely unwarranted, right? You're expecting yourself to be disciplined and controlled at a time when your emotions are the things that are taking control. They have the power to shut down the part of the brain that is responsible for adhering to your system, your rules, following all your plans that have not been mastered yet. Okay, so anything that any aspects of trading that is mastered, your emotions can be red hot and you'll still do. I have clients who will adhere to their daily loss limit no matter what. It doesn't matter how angry they get, they will follow it, right? In the past, that wasn't the case. They've learned to train it. Now that thing is now taken care of. They still get angry at times, but they can adhere to those rules. So the point being, right, there are still points of discipline that you likely, it's not entirely like you just do lots of random, take lots of random trades, with massive size. There is still some level of discipline, but the bottom line here is you are dealing with an emotional issue and you need to treat it that way. And so what I would do is begin to track and detail out what specifically is happening in the early parts of when you begin to kind of lose discipline, because it's not that you're losing discipline. Well, actually, that is possible. Maybe the beginning of this is actually some boredom or fatigue, some loss of focus, distractions. That could be the early signs of this. And then when you make a mistake, then maybe anger or fear, loss of confidence starts to flow afterwards. But the bottom line is get really detailed around what's happening. Try to get a good map of that pattern. And once you understand the emotions that are at play, then you've got to actually start to break them down, understand what's causing them, and really work through to correct the underlying causality of that. But it's not a discipline problem, right? Your emotions have the power to shut down all that of your attempts to be disciplined. All right, back to your questions, folks, here. Let's see where we left off. And again, so now we're about 30 minutes left. Got plenty of time to post your questions, especially if you have questions on our main theme of today, goal setting, understanding your why. And let me just post this one more time. I think there's some new folks have joined in here. Let's see. There we go. All right. Flash 2023. Go to jaredtendler.com /shop and pick yourself up a copy of The Mental Game of Poker or The Mental Game of Trading for a little chunk of change off, and get The Mental Game of Poker 2 for free. Now, if you're a trader, you might be wondering, why would I want The Mental Game of Poker 2? It's because I'm not going to write The Mental Game of Trading 2. It's because The Mental Game of Poker 2 gets into topics like getting into the zone more often, learning more efficiently, improving your decision-making, improving focus, improving mental endurance. So if those are themes and topics that you're interested in, I've got a lot of content in there on that. All right. Now back to what I just said to your questions. All right. Oh, here we go. Lion's mane is a mushroom. Interesting. Okay. In my head, I was thinking it was actual lion's mane somehow distilled into a pill. All right. Question from Christine. I'm currently stuck on sim. I see that defining my why could give me that confidence to trade live. Okay, great. So one thing, if you're stuck on the sim, right, bring your why in there, because I want you to bring more intensity, more emotional intensity into the sim. We want to make the sim closer to live trading. The sim is not trading. Very clear. The sim is not trading any more that the driving range is golf, right? The driving range is not golf. The sim is not trading. But both of those environments are a training ground. And to make that training ground a more effective training ground to prepare you to make the transition, you need to bring more emotional intensity, bring more consequence, bring more urgency, right? You need to prove yourself in the sim and raise the stakes for what that means so that you can feel more of the emotional volatility that you would experience in the live market, so you can practice correcting those in the sim, right? And then help you to make that transition. I notice fatigue after 1.5 to 2 hours, after which thinking through and decision-making suffers and more impulsivity. Any advice? So this actually goes to what I was just saying. So 2 things. Number one, you've kind of have a good track record for what your cap is. Now, there's a couple ways to look at this. You could set some goals for how long you want to push yourself, at chunks of time. So if you want to be able to sustain, let's say, 3 to 4 hours of energy, that's a different ball game than having many kind of segments or blocks of that focus throughout the day, right? I don't know if you're a trader or a poker player, but either way, right, you got to kind of make a decision of what you want. So one option is that around the 80-minute mark, so this is before the fatigue really starts to set in, that is when you would be injecting your why, right? And pushing yourself around your goals for endurance here, mental endurance, right? And really pushing yourself to sustain that, right? Bringing more energy, understanding what you want. Are you understanding that you want to keep your decision making at a high level for the next, let's say, 30 to 40 minutes, right? Push yourself to, let's say 100 minutes, so a little bit more than the 90, or to 130 minutes, right? Just try to push that range higher and higher. You're going to do that day after day after day, and look at much like it's an athlete training. You might track it, right? Now the key is you don't want to be pushing for much bigger chunks of time, right? It might seem like, oh, okay, well, let me just go from 2 to 3 hours. It's only 1 more hour. Well, yeah, but if you do the math, right, it's about like a 33% increase over, that's a large increase. You wouldn't just go into the gym being able to bench press 100 pounds and then throw up 130, right? I mean, you could do that conceivably once, but the odds are that you might hurt yourself. And certainly, day over day, it's not the ideal amount of kind of increasing to build that endurance long term. So 5 to 8% week over week. You start to scale it, right? It gets pretty aggressive pretty quickly. So you'll need to kind of have weeks where it's more of a consolidation week. Yeah, but that's kind of a basic premise. All right. I thought about my why deeply. However, in the morning when I just wake up, I'm not thinking of those deep, high-level whys. Do you have any suggestions to kickstart the day? Yeah, you could write about it so that you read this when you wake up, right? Make it the first thing you do. You could make a video of yourself talking to yourself about those whys and make that more fresh and more alive. The whole premise here is that as these whys get more ingrained, right? Again, you train them, much like anything else. When it's more ingrained, you can wake up foggy, not thinking about it, but you'll still be adhering to it because it's kind of just part of what you do. You don't want to have to be thinking about your bigger goals day to day, right? You want to be thinking about like the tasks that you're doing day to day in service of those goals, right? So, but to get to that point, you might just need to be a bit more repetitive. And so both options that I gave you could do that. All right. Okay. So let's call conversation here. All right. Sidebar question. Can you just spend a few minutes on the data collection worksheet? I'm finding it somewhat difficult to fill out each day after I lose on my day trades. Fill out for winning trades. Yeah. Let me pull open an example of a data collection worksheet. Let's see here. All right, well, now we're going to get into some randomness and see if any of these are any good. Because there's, oh, yeah, that's pretty basic. All right. Probably should have a spot where I keep some of these things. I'm not going to read through this. We'll just assume it's decent. Okay, here we go. So this is an example of the data collection worksheet, right? This actually came from the TRADERLION masterclass, an example from a student there, which is why you can see the scan me thing at the top. Now, basically, for those that aren't familiar with this, right? Basically, what you're trying to do is capture the mental and emotional data that is surrounding your mistakes, losing trades, winning trades, right? Could be even while you're in a trade. Bottom line is you're trying to capture the information that's going on so that you can understand the patterning that's occurring. So here's the situation, right? Seeing a stock acting good during the day, rush to buy the stock without looking at bigger picture overall setup. Trigger. The stock reached certain level. I'm interested, but not an entry point based on my system. Thoughts. Thinking it's going to go up without me if I don't act right now. Emotions, excessive greed, and confidence. Behaviors, watch every tick on the stock. Hope it confirms my bias. Actions, buy the stock and get shaken out quickly. Completely override risk management. And my guess is we can imagine what's going to happen next. I think this is blocking the bottom here. Look at how much I win or lose in the trade and not following my normal entry and exit rules. That's a change in decision making process. Change in market perception. Market will soon confirm my bias and think I know something others don't, which is why there's some overconfidence here, right? Enter and exit without a plan and not following own trading systems. This actually was a very good example. So I'm pretty happy with the randomness here. But yeah, Ken, so you can see that this is a robust answer. Now, there are many examples I've seen, and it certainly is acceptable to only have a couple pieces here, right? But you certainly want to understand the situation where this is occurring. You certainly want to understand the trigger, right? What is the catalyst for the faulty emotion, the faulty thoughts, the behaviors, the mistakes that are happening? And so, yeah, I mean, you're saying this kind of like after you lose on your day trades. Well, but why is a loss the trigger here? Maybe that's the point, right? The trigger, let me clarify this. The catalyst to doing the data collection should be you making a mistake, you having emotions that are maybe threatening you to make a mistake. You don't need to collect emotional data if you're trading properly. I mean, if you're doing this well, if you're trading well, you don't need to do this really. I mean, you certainly could to understand kind of the emotions that you may go through. But if your perception of the market is strong, your decision making is still sound, then great. But if it's not, and you can see it degrading, right? You're impulsive, you're reacting to news, overreacting to news, you're getting biased by certain comments that you see. You're seeing a potential setup and overreacting to it, much like this example. Those are the catalysts to then collect data about what's going on. And then as you kind of pay more and more attention to those situations, right, you're going to find more and more data. Okay. If that doesn't make sense, then let me know and I'll give you some more details. All right. Next question comes from Barry. I'm an ex-poker player turned dart player. Man, I freaking love watching darts on TV. I just gotta say it. I know people said it might sound so crazy to watch darts on TV, but my God, the skill that you all have is incredible. It's wild. I'm currently injured. Sorry to hear that. So I'm studying your office hours videos to help me connect with my goals and sharpen my axe for when I can play again. Thanks for the great content. I'm going to crush the dart world with my mental game. They won't know what hit them. Love it, man. Love it. Kudos to you. That's awesome. All right. Hi. Do your current videos apply to poker players? Yeah. I mean, I started in poker. I mean, so everything I do is certainly related to poker. I do have a video series for tournament players. If you're a tournament player, it's currently on my website, but I'm actually going to be releasing that soon through Learn WPT. So maybe just kind of pause on that, but there'll be an announcement. If you're not following me on Twitter or are part of my newsletter, then just make sure you're there because I will certainly be announcing that when that happens. But but yeah, I mean, certainly all of the previous office hours, right? We're on office hours 20. There's a lot of content here now. There's a lot of questions. This system applies to poker. It applies to esports. It applies to golf. Right? I've had a radiologist on here. So yeah, the system is the system because we're people, right? It's the basic premise of how human beings perform and where it goes awry. So yeah, there's a lot of content here that certainly can help. Mr. McLean, thank you for all your work. You're awesome. Appreciate that very much. All right. Mike, regarding identifying patterns that lead to A game, I've always found this elusive. When it happens naturally, it works. When I identify and routinize them, it doesn't. It's as if defining it removes the magic. So my only question for you would be, do you think that you form an expectation that when you identify and make a routine out of them, that you're now expecting it to work and to get into your A game? Because if that's the case, there's nothing more powerful to kill the power of this than an expectation. Yeah, I mean, I think there's got to be something going on here, because if you're finding something that happens naturally and it's only happening once, right, and not happening regularly, then there's something that is just kind of random in that moment and maybe not fully conceptualized, but you can try to understand why that thing may have worked, right? But we're dealing with like the placebo effect here in some respects, right? Placebo effect being for high blood pressure. I take a sugar pill thinking that it is medication, and my blood pressure goes down because I think I'm taking medication. And so the placebo is the mind's power to influence our physiology, influence our blood pressure. And so, yeah, an actual medication has to prove itself to be more effective than a placebo. And there are placebo effects in lots of places that you would be shocked by. The biggest one for me was what they call sham surgeries, where people with slight tears in their meniscus, right, a part of the knee, that they will give them anesthesia, they will put holes in their skin to make it look like they did something, and they won't do anything. They will, compare two groups of people. One actually had the real surgery, they had their meniscus fixed. Another group just had something that looked like they got surgery, and both groups will improve. It's like, how does that happen? The mind can somehow fix a meniscus tear? I don't know. Point being here, right? We're trying to get in the zone, trying to get your A game. We are trying to look for reliable factors, processes, routines that can work beyond a placebo, in a sense, beyond the sort of natural randomness that occurs. All right. Well, we had a good group here today, but y'all are out of questions. So I'm going to hang out here. We got another 15 minutes. I'm happy to wrap about any other topics you want, right? But this is now becoming a bit more like the office hours I kind of envisioned at one point, where it would be like a professor who's got an open door. Students can just kind of come in and come out whenever they want. And sometimes that professor is going to have some downtime. So maybe for the first time after 19 office hours, here we are, number 20, I may have a little downtime. So I'm not going to just fill dead space with me just talking and rambling. You got more questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, maybe I'll just do some emails. Hello from Kosovo. Amazing. Welcome. I love how much variety we've gotten, and places where you all are from. It's great stuff. Have I ever read Can't Hurt Me? Yes, I have. And I've actually just started listening / reading to his newest book, I forget the name of it now. So find it on my Audible account. Yeah, it's an intense. I mean, he is never finished. David Goggins never finished. He, as build, is the baddest, toughest man in the world, sure. What he has put himself through, I could never. I think from an aspirational standpoint, I would say that my sense is that Goggins is motivated by and through pain. I am motivated to correct and heal, and motivated to kind of purify my mind in a way that helps me to be at my best. I'm actually doing the same thing for my body to get me in a spot where I can play my best golf. My God, my trainer is has torturous techniques to remove these deep adhesions and knots in parts of my body that I had no idea were so tight. But it's just wild, and it's working. I mean, the piriformis, that's like a part of your butt. It's like this big muscle, and when it is tight, it really affects hip rotation and mobility. And it took me about a month on a lacrosse ball, just digging into this thing daily to really work through that. So yeah, I have a little bit of Goggins in me in that regard, but I don't want to push myself past the point where I'm like quite literally like breaking bones, taping up my shins to complete. That's not what I'm after. I'm after pushing myself hard and then backing off to try to heal and work through it that way. But yeah, I mean, this is stuff that I can't imagine truly, other than it's a great read. I'm a trader and poker player and struggle with staying mentally balanced. I get extremely angry when I lose, and lately I can't sleep well at night if I hold positions overnight. Any advice? So, yeah, I mean, number one, I want to see how much work you've done in this, right? If you've done work through my book, through the TRADERLION MASTERCLASS. I'm saying that in part just so I know kind of what you've tried. I'm going to assume the answer is no to both of those. And if not, then let me know. But the extreme anger, you got to look at that as a symptom, right? What is this symptom of, right? My guess is that you're incredibly competitive. And so, hating to lose is probably not something unique to trading, and is only maybe getting exposed in such a big way in trading. Could be. That is, something that has to get kind of reconciled, right? There's got to be this line where you have to learn how to lose. And maybe, trading and poker has been a thing where you haven't really kind of worked at losing. I mean, you have to be a great loser in these endeavors. I don't mean loser as in somebody who's losing money. I mean somebody who is capable of handling the short-term volatility that losing is part of. Now, I've heard traders and even poker players, try to recontextualize losing, right? That losing is like a business expense. It's just like kind of a part of the game. It's not, you're not actually losing. The only loss is when, you start to stack it up over longer periods of time. Now, if you can't sustain that, it is possible that confidence is at play here, right? If you're not winning, then you're losing. And if you're losing, then what does that mean about your capacity and your potential in these things? What does it mean for you in that regard? So there could be a confidence issue. Now, not sleeping well at night if you're holding overnight positions, there's not a whole lot you can do there other than I think that is a symptom of what you're dealing with. So, I would really suggest that you dive deeper into the causality here. Either it's the deeper reasoning for your anger or the deeper reasoning for, weaknesses in your confidence. And both my book and the masterclass are great places to do that. But you clearly are an intense person, and I don't mean that in a bad way at all. What I mean is that it's very likely that you're just sort of more sensitive to fluctuations that exist, and that is probably what makes you successful as a trader and a poker player, right? That drive and that intensity to see angles and opportunities that maybe others don't see. But in this regard, right, that is just kind of getting lit on fire here. But if you can figure out what the flaw is, then that'll be your chance to actually be able to handle the losses with more poise. Okay. What do I think about mind mapping? It's a cool tool. I think like a lot of things, there's lots of ways to get it done. Not something that I particularly like, but for myself, it's just not how my brain works. But I've certainly had many clients who've used it successfully. Did you cover your golf game? I'm not sure exactly what you meant, Paul. Without naming the golfer, who we all feel bad for, what advice to help boost confidence for the next hole or two? Yeah. So yeah, maybe I don't know exactly what you're talking about, but yeah, boosting confidence, right, is artificial. What you want truly is to understand the weaknesses that exist. And sometimes those weaknesses are just lacking knowledge about what makes you a strong player, right? Where your strengths are, right? So for me, I know my game very, very well. And so it takes a lot for me to lose confidence, playing now. And so that foundation of knowledge helps me to sustain that stable confidence, right? Doesn't mean I'm hitting every shot well. It just means that it's very unlikely for me to lose confidence. So boosting confidence is temporary. It's like a little flash, but then it's going to fade. Right? We don't want that. We want something that is solid. All right. Why is the mental game of poker and trading so similar? I mean, there are just very few professions, endeavors where losing is so baked in to the kind of the competitive environment, and that there is so much variation, right? The variance that is involved is such a large factor. And so as a result of those two things, the mental game is huge. Now, the other part is that many poker players and many traders are also using their own money. So from if you're a professional athlete, if you are, a salaried employee, right, it's unlikely that you are going to feel the same weight of your own money on the line as being a factor here. And so, yeah, I mean, like you're independent. Very many of you are isolated. And so there's issues in that regard. It's very often in a virtual environment. Obviously, you can, play poker in a live environment. Trading, not as much anymore. But the bottom line is the necessity to learn how to handle losing is big. The variance that's involved is big. The risk management, bankroll management is big. There's just a lot of similarities across the board. Jada Richard, not a question, just like to say thanks for everything. I keep improving, and that's all I can ask for, and that's all I could hope for too. So good to hear. Good to hear. Consistently notice starting off with patience, discipline, emotional regulation, follow process, but degrade as time, frustration accumulate. Observe this too much. Any thoughts on what's going on there? Yeah, you're getting frustrated, right? So there's probably a fatigue that is involved, right? For sure. But as frustration accumulates, it shrinks the clarity that you have within your mind, right? That is the fundamental dynamic of how the brain is wired. The emotional system has the power to shut off higher brain function, right? Thinking, planning, like the mental space where you're just even, having thoughts, all of that shrinks. And so you're going to lose access to learnings, lessons, processes, procedures, tactics that are newer, right? The stuff that is hardwired, that is, automatic base habits, that stuff you're going to continue to see, right? But it's going to, and you mentioned emotional regulation. Well, yeah, that is also a higher brain function, right? Emotional control is a higher brain function that your emotions shut down. So yes, intense emotions have the power to shut down the part of the brain responsible for controlling emotion. So you have to catch the increase early and deal with the frustration. Now, to deal with it truly, you need to actually get to the root of it. And, I've got, an office hours just on getting to the root of your problem. So I would, urge you to check that out. And then if you want to go deeper, go into the mental game of trading, go into the TRADERLION Masterclass. All right. Well, you all have stepped in here quite well with a lot of questions. I'm going to now have to go into lightning round mode here. I have to admit I have a problem with that money motivation attitude because we're not living in a vacuum. It doesn't sound good for me. If it works together with inner motivation, it's okay. When not, it's a recipe for disaster. Dude, there's lots of ways to do this. Okay. There's the hard and fast rules that I have are the basic foundations of my system. Everything else is up for negotiation because we as human beings, there's too much individuality and diversity that exists. So if this doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. But I can promise you it works for other people. So don't think that your way is the only way. I think there a lot of people have made that mistake in trying to be too, like I see people giving advice on Twitter and, you know, elsewhere. And it's like very often saying what has worked for you, which is cool, but just present it as that, not as fact, right? There are facts, there are rules, there are principles that are true for all of us. That stuff we got to play by. Those are rules. Everything else is up for negotiation, and there are lots of ways to get it done. I'll follow up. I definitely expect the routine identifies, right? So this is back to the question around why those factors stopped running, getting into the A game. Expect the routine identify to lead to my A game. Help me understand why I would not expect that routine for A game to result in A game. Because A game is like, and unless you know for a fact that this is the prescription and you have proven it time and time again that it will work, then you can expect it. But right now, you can't expect the routine to work because your expectations are actually impairing it. And they wouldn't impair it if you knew the full scope of why it worked. So there has to be other factors at play here. So now what you could do is set it as a goal. You know, a goal is different than an expectation. A goal implies that there's still learning, implies that there's still a degree of sharpness. But when you expect your routine to get you into A game, you have indicated to your mind that it does not need to focus as much. Oh, if I just do these things, bam, A game. Doesn't work that way because the first time it happened, you didn't expect it to happen. So the expectation is compromising the waters of your mind in a sense, right? It's impurifying what's going on there. You need high energy, a lot of clarity. Expectations decrease that energy and decrease that clarity. Have you identified traits that successful traders have in common? And they were mostly learned traits by those traders, or did they not have those traits before they started? I.e., if the trade is discipline, was the trader disciplined in other areas of life prior to trading? So do I consider that? I mean, yes, there are of these traits, but I think by and large, you can always learn them, right? So yeah, if you are disciplined in one area and you become and you bring it into trading, you know, it's likely that you will be there too. But it's not guaranteed because trading might expose emotional weaknesses that might impair your ability to be disciplined because trading exposes things that others don't. So yeah, I mean, I think bottom line is like there are a lot of traits, but those traits are kind of fuzzable. I mean, I'd say the biggest ones are a deep love and passion for trading, an interest and curiosity and the markets and whatever their system style tends to be, and a deep desire to be successful. So yeah, those are kind of the big ones. But yeah, everything else, right? Intelligence, right? There's some really smart traders who perform badly. There's some guys that are not that smart. I mean, they're smart enough, but they're workhorses, right? So there's a lot of ways to get it done. What if all your mental hands are extremely negative? It's very hard for you to log a mental hand history after a tilt trade, for example. I don't really have much to write down except for anger and illogical statements. So great. Just like get it all out then. And then when you've taken some time to cool off, come back to it and break it down. Right. So the extreme negativity is just like capturing what's happening. Like what is the core of what's going on, which is amazing to have. I mean, I know it doesn't feel like it, right? But the fact that your anger is so big and so powerful, if you capture all that, it's going to really help you because the illogical statements are only illogical because you don't understand like kind of what is functionally flawed about your mind or your mentality at that point that's causing you to think like that, right? But if you work the system through, you'll find kind of the deeper flaws. All right, I think we got to get to one last question here. How do I know what's considered my A game versus B game and C game? Also, if my A game is when I'm most on point, how can it be improved? All right, well, you got to study it like anything else. So I would start with the extremes, right? A game versus C game first. So when you're at your best, when you're at your worst, try to detail those out, and then kind of converge on B game. I did actually do an office hours on this. I think it was, I don't remember the title of it, but it should be in the title. It should be obvious. And then if your A game is when you're most on point, how can it be improved? Because there's always room for improvement, right? The inchworm concept suggests that as your C game improves, you create mental space to actually take on, higher and higher learnings from an A game standpoint. Now, from a mental and emotional standpoint, yeah, maybe your A game's not going to improve that dramatically, but you can become more focused, more consumed and in the moment, more present and poised and more disciplined. But maybe more the A game improvement is a technical one, right? In terms of your proficiency as a trader or a poker player. All right. Mike's follow-up. I actually think we just made some of the same points. Reaching your A game requires energy and mental focus. Routinizing something makes your brain drop focus and energy. Therefore, you can't routinize A game. No, you can though. That's the point. Yeah, you can. You just can't expect. You got to treat it like you're mixing a cocktail, man. It's like you can find the factors that are at play here, but it takes a lot of self-awareness and understanding of which pieces of the puzzle to kind of plug in there and make some adjustments, or just go through the process with the sense of anticipation that this is helping, but not guaranteeing. You still got to bring energy and clarity. So it's both. All right. Wow. Well done, everybody. We filled the hour with a lot of great stuff here. Appreciate the thoughts and questions as always. Next office hours, February 22nd, 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. So 2 hours later than today. And the topic is going to be improving focus. Once again, Flash 2023 to save 35% on the mental game of trading, the mental game of poker, and get a free copy of the mental game of poker 2. I wish you all very well. Have a great month. Get the year off right. Get to the deeper reasons for why you do this, why you trade, why you play poker, why you play golf, why you're in esports, why you do what you do, right? And let's make some things happen this year. Let's make some things happen. All right, y'all. All the best. See you.